What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down and take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching story and put them together into one big video. Now, today's full story video is going to be about Ultimates 2. And for me personally, this was the best Ultimate story in the original trilogy for the Ultimates. Now, when it comes to Ultimates 2, it's really more the idea of what would happen if America has gone too far? What would happen if Nick Fury, S.H.I.E.L.D., and the Ultimates have gone too far? Because remember, when it came to the Ultimates, the original purpose for the team was to be used to protect America, but to also go after supervillains, and that was it. But when it comes to Ultimates 2, we kind of find out what was the actual true purpose for the team, to use the team as a military force against other countries who might stand in the way of America in their own personal goals. And so what would happen if America used the Ultimates as a military force? How would other countries answer to that kind of idea? And this story answers that question for us. And so guys, here is Ultimates 2, and I really do hope you enjoy. Okay, so getting back into the Ultimates, we now pick up with Ultimates 2 Volume 1. Now, let me explain about Ultimates 2 real quick, because when it comes to Ultimates 2, it really was used as a way to show that the Ultimates are going to go in a different direction. Because in the original Ultimate series, the main purpose of the Ultimates was supposed to be used as a superhero team to protect the country, to go after super villains. But the Ultimates were never supposed to be used to go attack other countries who could be enemies against America, who could be trying to attack America down the road. Because here's the thing, other countries don't have superhero teams. And so if you are talking about the idea of America sending in their own team to go attack other countries, it wouldn't be fair at all. It would make America look like some big bullies. But you had S.H.I.E.L.D., the American government, and also the Ultimates promise that they wouldn't do that at all. That they're only going to be used as a way to protect the country and chase after super villains. But that whole idea gets thrown out the window once we pick up with Steve Rogers in the opening pages of Ultimates 2 number 1, where you have Steve Rogers flying into hostile territory to save 9 hostages who are being held against their will. Now the thing is, these 9 hostages are being held in Iraq. Around this time in Marvel Comics and also the real world, Iraq was enemies with America. And so just like that, we're now seeing America sending in their superhero team to go in to handle different kinds of situations. America is now looking like the big bully to other countries. Now, it's just Steve Rogers. It's not the complete Ultimates team, but the point is, this is just a start. What happens once you have the Ultimates begin to send almost everybody into other countries to handle different kinds of situations? And really, that topic gets brought up very quickly because when it comes to Larry King, in the last Ultimate series, he had interviewed Tony Stark about the idea of the Ultimates because the people of America were really upset when they found out that $25 billion was used on the Ultimates program. Now, once the Ultimates had saved the world, the people of America had begun to love the superhero team. But now you have the people once again questioning the idea of the Ultimates, with them now going into other countries to attack other countries possibly. Now yes, it was Steve Rogers just going into Iraq to save some hostages, but again, that is just a start. What could possibly happen down the road? And it's Tony Stark trying his best to calm down the flames. Now we do jump over to Steve Rogers. And when it comes to Steve Rogers, we get reminded that he is currently dating the Wasp. You see, back in Ultimates Volume 1, the Wasp was brutally beaten by Hank Pym. And so by Volume 2 of Ultimates 1, she left him and got with Steve Rogers. Now, here's the thing. Steve Rogers is very upset about the idea that there are different reporters constantly talking bad about the Ultimates, especially the Wasp, because the world knows that she is married to Hank Pym. But it looks really bad that every other day she's walking out to the apartment of Steve Rogers. Now, when it comes to Janet, she tells Steve, hey, we're famous. Like, we have to get used to that. It's not always going to be great positive news about us. When it comes to the new world, they're trying their best to find anything that could possibly hurt us, like me dating you. And honestly, she's right, because that kind of talk right there is going to be really important by the end of this chapter. Now, when it comes to Hank Pym, the world knows that Hank Pym had beaten the Wasp. And so because of that, you have Betty Ross, the PR person for the Ultimates, tell Nick Fury that it's probably best to remove Giant Man from the Ultimates because that really hurts the image of the entire team. And so for a long time, you had Hank Pym working on different projects that could possibly allow him to get back on the team. And he has been working on those projects with Bruce Banner. Now remember, Bruce Banner is locked up at the moment because back in Ultimates Volume 1, the dude killed hundreds of people in Manhattan as a way to help out the Ultimates. And I'll explain more of that here in a moment. But you have the two characters working on different kinds of things to possibly help Hank Pym get back onto the Ultimates, a new identity. And this leads into the idea of Ant-Man, because back in Volume 1 and Volume 2, Hank Pym was just Giant Man. That was it. But now we are going to move forward to the next step, Ant-Man. Now, something I do want to talk about is the Ultimate Marvel Universe, like how it was created. Because when it came to Brian Michael Bendis and also Mark Millar, they asked the fans one big question. They said, hey, imagine our world. Now, imagine the idea of heroes appearing in our world. What would that world look like? And so when it came to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, they were trying to answer that question with these different books. And so when it came to characters like Thor, most of the people in the Ultimate Marvel Universe believed that Thor was just some crazy person who believed that he was the god of thunder. But for everyone else, it's not possible for him to be the god of thunder. And when it came to his powers, it was just all tech-based. But also, it was well known in the world that Thor was actually a mental patient, a psych patient. And so to a lot of people, they look at Thor as someone who's just mentally ill. But he truly believes that he is the god of thunder. And really, this next section really shows the possibility that Thor could be mentally ill, because you have Thor going to a nearby diner to talk to Volstagg, who's from Asgard. Now, when it comes to Volstagg, he tells Thor, hey, I got a message for you from your father Odin. He's very worried for you and your new allies because your brother Loki had escaped again, and you know he has the ability to play with reality. Now, when it comes to Thor, he's not worried at all because he truly believes that he should be able to take down Loki. But then out of nowhere, you have a waiter walk up to ask Thor, hey, are you ready to order, or in the possibility, are you waiting for a friend to show up? And Thor says, a friend to show up? What do you mean? My friend is right here in front of me. But you have the waiter say, dude, there's nobody there. And Thor looks over and realizes that he was just talking to, well, himself. And so now the question is Thor actually mentally ill, or is Loki on Earth right now playing with reality? But now we get into one of the big moments of Ultimates 2. In the first chapter, does a great job of pulling in the fans wanting more. Because right off the bat, we pick up with Steve Rogers and the Wasp hanging out with Gale and Bucky. Now, while on this double date, out of nowhere, you have a bunch of reporters walk up to Steve Rogers and to begin questioning him about the Hulk. Now, let's not forget, back in Ultimates Volume 1, Bruce Banner took a new version of the Hulk serum to show the world that we need the Ultimates as a way to protect the world. Now, when it came to the people of America, they had no idea that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. You had S.H.I.E.L.D. and Betty Ross being able to keep that hush-hush, but to also make the Ultimates look very good. But they knew if the world find out that Bruce Banner was the Hulk, who used to work for S.H.I.E.L.D., and the only reason why he turned into the Hulk as a way to show the world we need the Ultimates as some kind of scheme done by the American government, you're gonna have the people begin to turn their backs on the Ultimates. Well, we kind of find out somebody had leaked that information to all the different news stations around the world, or America, and now everyone knows that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. But now we have to shift our focus over to Iron Man, who's right now helping out a new division given to us in this volume of the Ultimates, where we kind of find out that in Europe there was another super soldier program to hopefully enhance different soldiers to fight alongside their army. And we're introduced to Captain Britain, Captain France, and also Captain Spain. There's going to be a few more characters popping up from that division down the road in later chapters, but you have Iron Man going out of his way to use his new Iron Man suit to help them out to get a submarine out from the bottom of the ocean. Now, while doing that, Black Widow is in the main control room listening in on this mission, and we get confirmation that Black Widow and Iron Man are now dating one another. But here's the thing. When it comes to Black Widow, while waiting for Iron Man to return, well, she gets a call from Nick Fury, and he's calling for an emergency meeting. Now we get into the awkward parts of Ultimates 2, and that will be Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. Now, I did not mention this in Volume 1 nor 2 of Ultimates 1, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it now because it is going to be very important for Ultimates 3, unfortunately. When it comes to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, they are an incest couple. Yes, you heard that right. Brother and sisters who are in love with one another. But either way, you have those two characters also getting a call from Nick Fury about this very important meeting. Now, when it comes to this important meeting, it's really more of Nick Fury telling us that right now, heads are about to roll because the president is also ticked off because he had no idea that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. But on top of that, now the people of America, they're also upset because they were lied to. They believed the Hulk was just some random guy who popped up one day and you had the Ultimate step in to take him down and the day was saved. They were loved. But now they know that the Hulk was Bruce Banner, who worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., who took a super soldier serum to turn himself into the Hulk. And that whole project is being done by S.H.I.E.L.D., who's also running the Ultimates program. And so right now it looks really bad on the team. And you have the people of America say, Bruce Banner must die. He killed off 800 people in Manhattan. Put him on trial, and yes, he will lose, and yes, it'll be a death sentence, but that is what the people of America wants. Now, here's a big question though. Who told all those different news channels about Bruce Banner being the Hulk? And everyone says it has to be Thor, because Thor is one, not there at the moment, but two, let's not forget, back in Volume 1 of Ultimates, Thor did not want to join the team at all because he was afraid in the idea that Nick Fury could use the Ultimates to attack other countries around the world. And so the Nick and the S.H.I.E.L.D. and the rest of the team, Thor was always trying to ruin the Ultimates program. It has to be him who told the world that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. Now, you do have Steve go out of his way to go confront Thor. Now, we can't forget that when it comes to Thor, everyone believes that he's mentally ill, that he is not the god of thunder. And so when it comes to Steve, he's all like, hey, Thor, I know it was you who told the world that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. But you have Thor say, nah, man, it wasn't me. Like, yes, I hate the idea of what the Ultimates are becoming, the idea of going across the world to attack other countries, but it wasn't me who told the world that Bruce was the Hulk. But I do know who did tell the entire world. And you have Steve say, fine, then go ahead and tell me. And Thor says, hey, it was Loki. And you have Steve say, you know what? I'm done. Because I don't believe that you are the god of thunder. And so because of that, I can definitely not believe in the idea that your brother Loki is out there right now trying to ruin us. And so you have Steve walk away. But for Thor, it's kind of like, but you believe in your God when you go to church on Sunday, but you can't believe that I'm a God and I have an evil brother who's out there trying to ruin us. But now it's time for us to check in with Bruce to see how Bruce is doing when it comes to handling all this mess that's out there in the open. And we see that he's currently in a therapy session with Charles Xavier. Now, when it comes to Charles, he is concerned in the idea of how Bruce is feeling. But Bruce tells Charles, I knew that this was coming one day. I knew that sooner or later I was going to die. I knew there was no way out of this. And so even though the world now knows that I am a killer, I'm okay dying for my sins, for my mistakes. And when it comes to Charles, he realized that, yeah, that is how Bruce feels. This is not Bruce trying to lie to Charles. It's Bruce telling the actual truth. And so you have Charles leave to go inform Nick how Bruce is doing. Now, right after Charles leaves, you then have Hank Pym stop by. Now, when it comes to Hank Pym, this is Hank telling Bruce, hey, listen, one, your trial is going to be televised across the world in many different countries. But on top of that, it's going to be in 95 different languages because a lot of people want to see you pay for your crimes. But then you have Hank say, oh, by the way, I'm leaving S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, Bruce can't believe what he just heard. But it's Hank saying, well, listen, I tried to rejoin the Ultimates, but I can't because my past, because I hit my wife. They want a core of people where people, the public, can actually love. But on top of that, I gave my best project over to Nick Fury, which was the Giant Man Serum. And so now I am going to be replaced completely. I will no longer be Giant Man. Now what's going to happen is going to have random S.H.I.E.L.D. agents become giant men. The Ultimates are now being turned into a military team. They are going to be used to attack other countries around the world. They are going to fight alongside with giant men to help win battles in other countries. And when it comes to Bruce, he can't believe what he is hearing. But while you have the two guys talking to one another, it's Nick Fury listening in. And Nick is kind of like, yeah, that's true. Now, he didn't tell Bruce nor Hank that, but it's him kind of showing us, the readers, like, yeah, he's right. I'm trying to turn the Ultimates into a military team. And so then we dive into the trial for Bruce Banner. Now, here's the thing about the trial. You do have Matt Murdock coming out of his way to defend Bruce Banner. But the problem is, this trial is pointless because no matter what Matt says, no matter what evidence he used to help out Bruce, you're gonna have the judge and also the jury agree that Bruce Banner must pay. He should be killed off for the crimes that he had committed. And so while you have everyone watching, it's like, this is pointless. Why are we doing this? Go ahead and skip to the point where you say that he is sentenced to death. But while you have everybody watching this trial, we then shift our focus over to Thor, who's doing an interview on live television the same time you have Bruce on trial. And so when it comes to Thor, in this interview, he says, it's very upsetting that my own team members believed that me, Thor would be the one to tell the world that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. But at the same time, though, I feel like this is just smoke and mirrors as a way to distract us because something bigger is coming down the road by S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Ultimates. And once again, it's Thor talking about the idea of the Ultimates being used as a military force to go into other countries to handle different kinds of situations that could possibly affect America down the road. It's Thor feeding into what the people of America are believing once again. But now we jump back over to Bruce Banner. Now, here's the thing. You have Bruce Banner right now just waiting for the word to figure out if he is guilty or innocent, even though he already knows that he's going to be guilty. Now, he is confronted by Betty Ross, and I know I said multiple times in my last two videos, I don't like Betty Ross at all when it comes to her in the Ultimate Marvel universe because she's really toxic. Let me explain. So when it came to Bruce Banner, the first time he turned into the Hulk by this point in the Ultimate Marvel universe was in Ultimate Marvel Team Up #2. Now after that, he was cured and he lost Betty Ross. She wanted nothing to do with him at all. She moved on with her life. Now, like I said earlier, when it came to Bruce taking a new version of the Hulk serum, the first reason was because he wanted to show the world we do need the Ultimates. But there was another reason why. That second reason was because he heard that Betty Ross was on a date and he was ticked off. And so when he took the serum and turned into the Hulk was going crazy to get Betty Ross back. Now, here's the thing, because after you had the Ultimates be able to take the Hulk down, Betty Ross expressed the idea that now she was back in love with Bruce Banner because he went so far to do some crazy things to get her back. It showed her that she wanted to be with him once again. And for me personally, that's just really toxic like no other. But now she feels guilty because now Bruce is going to die. And she realized that part of the reason why he turned to the Hulk is because of her. And so now she wants Bruce to say, hey, just please tell me you love me. When it comes to Bruce, he can't say that. He can't tell her that he loves her. And so she feels heartbroken. But right after that, you then have Nick Fury arrive. Now, when Nick arrives, it's Nick saying, hey man, listen, I got some news for you. The whole entire case got thrown out. You are a free man. You are good to go. Let's drink. And so you have Nick Fury give Bruce a drink, having him believe that he actually won, that he's actually innocent, until he realized the drink was drugged to knock him out, because now they are going to kill off the Hulk. Now, when it comes to the Ultimates, they realize that the only way to make sure that Bruce Banner actually dies is to throw a nuke at him. It has to be the only way to kill off the Hulk, to kill off Bruce Banner. Now, most of the Ultimates, they're very upset with the idea what they have to do here, but at the same time, they have no choice. He was found guilty for all the crimes that he had committed. He has to pay for his crimes. And so, right when the nuke drops, we see his eyes turn green. But now we jump over to Hank Pym. Now, when it comes to Hank Pym, remember, he told Bruce earlier that S.H.I.E.L.D. was trying to get rid of him completely. And it seems by this point, he's out now. And so you have Hank going back to his apartment where he has a couple missed calls, one for a new apartment, but the other one is a guy from his old department demanding that Hank Pym sends back over the Ultron plans. And you have Hank say, no, there's no way I am going to give them my designs for my Ultron program. But then he gets another call. And when he answers it, it's Bruce, or somebody, it's Bruce obviously, it's Bruce saying, hey Hank, thank you for what you done for me. And it seems like Bruce was able to escape because he turned to the Hulk right when the nuke hit. And so Bruce is out there in the world just hiding. And the question is right now, where? Now, Bruce Banner is gone, yes, but here's the problem. You see, now you have the people of America once again questioning the whole idea of the Ultimates. Because if the Ultimates had lied about Bruce Banner, then what else are they lying about? Are they actually lying about the idea of the Ultimates being used as a military force? You can tell the public, no, we are not going to do that. But in reality, that could be a lie. And then you could use them as a military force. The people of America wants answers. And so now you have different members of the Ultimates going out of their way to do different interviews to kind of say, no, we're just here to help protect the country. That's it. Yes, we can handle small problems. We can also handle big problems, but we are not going to be used as a military force yet. Now, we have to jump over to Black Widow and Iron Man, where we see that Iron Man has gone out of his way to create Black Widow her own iron suit, but also he does ask for her hand in marriage. And she says yes. So now Black Widow and Iron Man are engaged. And this is great. But here's the thing. That iron suit that Iron Man gave to Black Widow is going to be very important in later videos. But now we have to jump over to Italy, where we actually pick up with a protest happening in Rome. Now, this protest is all about the idea that you have different countries in Europe coming together to build their own super soldiers, just like America is doing currently. Now, we already saw Captain Britain, Captain France, Captain Spain, but there are others out there who are part of this whole Euro super soldier program. And the people of Italy do not like the idea that their money is being used for those reasons. Now, when it comes to the protest, it's supposed to be a peaceful one, except you now have the protesters being attacked by the police. Now, Thor steps in because Thor agrees that right now the protesters are protesting the right thing. Why in the world do different countries need super soldiers for? Why are you guys always trying to go to war with one another? And so for Thor, he goes out of his way to attack the police officers to protect the protesters. But now we jump over to the Dome. Now, the Dome is the home base for the European Defensive Initiative team. This is the team that was able to create their own captain. Captain Britain, Captain France, Captain Spain, and the list goes on. Now, the reason why we are going to jump over to the Dome is because you have the Ultimates also arriving at the base as well, because this is going to be a team up. The Ultimates and the European Defensive Initiative team, they're going after Thor for what he did. To these two teams, he is completely in the wrong. But at the same time, we begin to learn the supposed origin for Thor by one character, and his name is Gunnar Goldman. Now, when it comes to Gunnar, he tells us two things. One, he's part of the Norwegian team for the European Defensive Initiative, but also he is the brother of Thor. Now, when it comes to Gunnar, he says, listen, when it comes to us Norwegians, we were trying to create our own super soldiers, but unfortunately, we could not accomplish that goal. And so we went into a different direction. That direction was technology. Give someone some advanced technology that would make them a super soldier. Hence the idea of Thor. Because like I said earlier, most of the heroes on the Ultimates did not believe that Thor was a god. They believed that Thor had some advanced technology. And so when it comes to Gunnar, he confirms that by saying, hey, listen, I created everything that Thor is currently using, because originally I was supposed to give that tech to somebody else, but my brother stole that tech. Now, here's the thing about Thor, because now you have Gunnar saying Thor is mentally ill. He does have something wrong with him. And so I believe because of his illness, it led him to believe that he was the god of thunder. Made him believe that I am Loki. but also made him believe that my tech was his actual armor suit that made him the god of thunder. But either way, it's Nick saying we need the Ultimates and also the EDI to go after Thor to bring him in. Now, you do have the Ultimates and the EDI be able to find Thor very easily, except once they do find Thor, it's now him trying to prove that he is actually innocent. He's all like, hey guys, listen, y'all believe which I want to believe, but I want to tell you guys that you are being tricked by my brother Loki. Matter of fact, the guy at the compound, his name is not Gunnar. His name is Loki. He's playing mind games with y'all. But the problem is the Ultimates in the EDI, they truly believe that Thor is mentally ill. And so you have Steve Rogers tell Thor, nah man, there's no way out of this at all. We all believe that you need some help, and we are here to help you. So go ahead and step down before things get very ugly. Now, when it comes to the final chapter for today's video, we really see Thor going up against the Ultimates. Now, for me personally, this is one heck of a battle, but it also shows that Thor is not playing around here. He's trying to prove that he is innocent. He's trying to prove that the Ultimates are being controlled by Loki in some kind of way. Now you have Thor say, listen, this is what Nick Fury wants as well. He wants to get rid of me because I was the only person who saw the real purpose to Nick's idea when it came to the Ultimates. Once I'm gone, he is going to send you guys over to other countries to attack those countries for standing in his way. But for the Ultimates, they are continuing to ignore Thor. Now, when it comes to Thor, you have the EDI say, if you get rid of his belt, he'll be powerless. He will no longer be the most powerful character on the earth. He should be easy to take down. But that's the problem though. They're having a hard time getting to the belt. And so every single time you have one of the Ultimates get close enough, he sends them flying back the other direction. Now, it all comes down to Quicksilver though, because let's not forget, Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch are part of the Ultimates, even though they haven't done anything at all in 3 volumes. But this is a big moment for Quicksilver, because while the rest of the Ultimates in the EDI are getting their butt whooped, you didn't have the Scarlet Witch go over to her brother and say, hey, you have to try one more time. You have to get rid of Thor. Get rid of that belt. All because he hit me. And like I said earlier, the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, well, they are they're a couple. Yeah, that's weird. But either way, because his sister was hit, he gets so angry, he runs full speed and being able to grab the belt, take it away from Thor. And just like that, Thor is no longer powered anymore. He is powerless. And now they can take him in. After you have Thor get locked up by the Ultimates, he's then confronted by Gunnar. But this is the moment where we get confirmation that Gunnar is Loki. Now, when it comes to Loki, he tells Thor, hey, listen, man, it was me who turned the Ultimates against you because, you know, we play this game over and over and over again. And every single time you do find a way to stop me, but I really want to see how you're going to stop me this time. Now, when it comes to Loki, he tells Thor, oh, by the way, when it comes to the Hulk, I didn't tell the world that Bruce Banner was the Hulk. Matter of fact, it was somebody else. Really, let me bring you in on a secret. Somebody on your team, the Ultimates, is actually a traitor. And then you have Loki walk away. Now, here's the thing. Loki was able to use his abilities to hide from the cameras. And so again, it does look like that Thor is just talking to himself. But in reality, he was talking to Loki. But now we have to shift our focus over to Nick Fury. And you have Nick Fury meeting up with the Ultimates, some members of the Ultimates. Now, like I have been saying in this entire video, you had the public wondering, would the Ultimates begin to be used as a military force? But you had the Ultimates tell everyone, no, we are a superhero team only to be used to handle small problems in our country, to go after super villains. But you have Nick tell the Ultimates, hey, we got trouble in the Middle East. And so that means the Ultimates are now about to be used as a military force. But with that being said, this is where we are going. Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the Ultimates, we do pick back up once again with Ultimates 2. Now, like I said in our last video, when it comes to the Ultimates 2 series, the main purpose of this series was to show that Nick Fury has been lying the entire time. You see, back in Ultimates 1, he kept telling everybody in the world that he was not going to use the Ultimates as a military force. Instead, his main goal was to use the Ultimates to protect America, but to also go after super villains, which again ties into protecting America. They were not going to be used as a military force against other countries at all. But when it comes to Ultimates 2 Volume 1, we had gotten a lot of different examples of him just flat out lying, because he did use the Ultimates in different kinds of situations around the world. And it's kind of showing the Ultimates now being used as a military force. And really, at the tail end of our last video, we saw him talk to a few members of the Ultimates, and they were about to go on another mission somewhere else in the world, once again showing they're being used as a military force. But when it comes to Nick Fury, he kind of realized that just having one team of Ultimates is not good enough. He needs multiple teams of Ultimates. And really, it was hinted back in our last video, because remember, when it came to Hank Pym, he was fired by S.H.I.E.L.D. because he gave Nick the one thing Nick wanted from Hank, which was the Giant Man Serum. And so now Nick is able to take that serum and give it to other people. And that starts a new project known as Goliath, where you're going to have giant men being able to be used against other countries around the world. But Nick is not going to stop there, because now we pick up in today's storyline where we see the Ultimates trying their best to handle a hostage situation on a plane. Now, once you have the Ultimates being able to take out the bad guys and then throw them off the plane, you have the guys be saved by three men who are wearing older versions of Iron Man suits, and they are called the Rocket Men. And so that shows that even Tony Stark has now begun the process of actually helping Nick kick off different kinds of projects that could possibly build other teams of Ultimates who could also be military teams to use against other countries around the world. And really, when it comes to Nick, he does not stop there at all, because as we dive into the next page, we see the other projects that Nick is currently working on. So for example, there is a project called The Four Seasons, where you have 4 different characters who are going to wear suits that will give them abilities to use out in the field against other countries who are trying to attack America. But we also kind of find out there is someone else known as Lieberman who's going through the Super Soldier program. They're trying to create another Captain America, because this guy was able to actually take the serum, and he has shown that he's almost on level with Steve Rogers. And this is great, because if they are able to get him going, then the possibility of others are just down the road. Now, when it comes to Nick Fury, he knows there are going to be other countries out there in the world who are going to begin the process of trying to defend themselves against the Ultimates. Because if the Ultimates are going to be used as a military force, they're going to need some protection. And matter of fact, when it comes to Nick, he is confronted by Victor. Now, when it comes to Victor, he is the general from Russia, and he does express the idea that there are other countries who are very upset about the whole Ultimates program. Now, at first, those countries were okay with the first Ultimates team because it seemed to them that team was put together because of 9/11. But now when it comes to Nick, he's now building more Ultimates just for the heck of it. And when it comes to Victor, that is not okay at all. And so you also have Victor say, you are breaking some rules when it comes to the United Nations, because apparently all countries had agreed to stop working on superhuman programs. But here's SHIELD right now, just going out of their way to create these different kind of super beings. Now, we do pick up with a guy known as Mr. Nix. Now, when it comes to Nix, apparently he's the best assassin in the entire world. But by this point, he had retired. But apparently somebody is trying to hire him and bring him out of retirement to go after Nick Fury. And this shows the fear of the idea that there are people worried that you're going to have all of these different countries begin the process of trying to build superhuman beings to use against each other. Is going to lead into possibly another war. And so when it comes to Nick, he's being hired to kill off Nick Fury. Now, we also get reminded that when it comes to the Ultimates, in the last video we did, they had to kill off Bruce Banner, because when it came to Bruce, he had killed off 800 people when he turned the Hulk back in Ultimates 1. And so he was put on trial, he was found guilty, and was given a death sentence. Now, when it came to the Ultimates, they had dropped a nuke on him, believing it would have killed him off. Well, now Nick gets word that apparently the Hulk is not dead, because you have different members of reserves out there across the world trying to handle different kinds of situations. And one of them responded to the idea of some kind of big beast just walking around. And that big beast was the Hulk. And so now Nick knows the Hulk has survived, and this could be a possible problem down the road. Now, when it comes to the Ultimates being out there, you're now having other people in the world who are very inspired to become heroes as well. But here's the problem. The Ultimates are well-trained heroes. These new people who are popping up, they're not trained at all, and most likely they could die down the road if they try to handle some big time situation. So for example, we now have the Defenders. Now, when it comes to this group, none of them have any abilities at all that could possibly help them out in the field. But they do claim to be well-trained fighters, and they want to be vigilantes. They want to go out of their way to protect the innocent people. But the problem is, again, they're not well-trained heroes. They have no abilities at all. And most likely, this team is going to get themselves killed, or possibly somebody else. And when it comes to Nick Fury, he is always trying to prove that the world needs the Ultimates. He's trying to justify his reasons of why the world needs them, because every single day a new threat pops up. But sooner or later, there are going to be multiple threats across the world. And unfortunately, the Ultimates cannot handle all those threats at once. And so that is why you need to have more and more members of the Ultimates. For example, there used to be a time and day where if you were hit with a nuclear wave, you were going to die from cancer. But now there's a possibility if you are hit with a nuclear wave, you could turn into a huge monster that is going on a rampage. And so when it comes to Nick, he's trying to prove This is just one reason why we need the Ultimates. Imagine a world where you have monsters popping up left and right across the world. Do you really think one team of Ultimates can handle all those different things at once? But now we have to jump back over to Mr. Nix. Now, when it comes to Nix, we see him meeting up with some guy who's handing him a very special kind of weapon. A weapon that was only in development by S.H.I.E.L.D. And S.H.I.E.L.D. had only made 2 of these weapons so far. And so when it comes to Mr. Nix, this weapon can be used as a way to take out Nick Fury. And he does plan on using that weapon to take out Nick. Now I want to shift our focus back over to Lieberman, because remember, when it comes to Lieberman, he was supposed to be another Captain America. But when it comes to Nick, he's telling Lieberman, yes, you may become another Captain America, but in reality, you could become the main Captain America, because you have Nick saying here, we don't know how long we are going to have Steve around. Steve could possibly die in the next 5 years or possibly sooner. Or there is the idea that he may turn evil. And so we have to be ready for anything. And so Lieberman, I want to tell you that you are going to become the next Captain America, because this is the first guy in 50 years to be able to take the super soldier serum and now be on level with Steve Rogers. And so now we are talking about having 2 Captain Americas in the world. Now here's the thing about the reserves, because remember, most of the reserves are given different kinds of suits or technology to be able to use different kinds of abilities or weapons out in the field. The only ones who actually do have abilities are the Goliaths and also Lieberman. Now, when it comes to the giant men, they're being kept on base, but the others, they're allowed to leave the base and go out at night to have some fun. And so we do go with the 4 seasons, the Rocket Men and also Lieberman. Now, while hanging out, they see a bunch of fire trucks heading over to a location where there is a huge fire. Now, when it comes to Lieberman, he wants to help out, but the rest of the team can't, because the Rocket Men don't have their armor suits. When it comes to the 4 seasons, they don't have their power suits. And so Lieberman has to go on his own. But apparently something happened to him when he tried to help out the firefighters with that fire, because you have Nick get a call saying, hey man, you need to come back to base. And once you have Nick arrive at the base, we come to find out that Lieberman had died. Something with the super soldier serum shut down his entire body, his brain, his organs. He just died right then and there. He did not even make it inside the fire at all to start helping out the firefighters to save the innocent people. And so now you have Nick going back to the drawing board, now trying to find somebody else who could possibly be that second Captain America. But now we have to jump back over to Mr. Nix. Now, when it comes to Nix, he's about to take the shot to kill off Nick Fury to make the world a better place. But here's the thing, Nix gets a call from the lady who gave him the job, and she tells him, hey, listen, I know who hired you. The person that hired you was Nick Fury. And by the time Nix hears those words, Nick Fury has a gun pointing right at him and takes a shot, killing off Mr. Nix. And the reason why Nick had hired Nix is because Nick's saying there are going to be people out in the world who are going to try to kill me for many different reasons. And those kind of people like Mr. Nix, who are great assassins, I have to go ahead and go out of my way to take them out now so that they will not be a problem down the road for me. Now, the next chapter is really going to focus on Hank Pym, because by this point in the Ultimates 2 series, Hank Pym has lost his wife. He has lost his job at S.H.I.E.L.D. He was let go from the Ultimates. He had officially hit rock bottom in his standards. And so for Hank, he's kind of wondering, where can he go next? And so he joins the Defenders. Now, like I said earlier, when it comes to the Defenders, they are a group of nobodies. They have no abilities at all, and they're going around lying to the world that they have powers, or at least they have some kind of training in fighting, but they don't. And so for Hank, he's kind of wondering, what's the point on being this team right here, a team of nobodies? Now, this is also the moment where you have Hank Pym introduce the idea of Ant-Man being able to shrink down in size, the opposite of Giant Man. And he'll be the only person on the entire team who has powers. But he's trying his best to see how far this team can actually go. Now, even though Hank had joined the Defenders, he's still trying to rejoin S.H.I.E.L.D. at least. He knows that he can't join the Ultimates because, well, he's well known across the world as a wife beater, but he wants to at least rejoin S.H.I.E.L.D. by showing Nick different kinds of projects that he has been working on. So, for example, Ultron and also Vision. But when it comes to Nick, he does not want anything from Hank at all. He tells Hank, leave. Just leave the base completely. You're not getting your job back at all. You have been officially let go. Goodbye. Now, when it comes to Hank, on his way out, he runs into his ex-wife. And this really sucks. And the reason why? Because now she can see him at rock bottom. Now, he lies to her, but we know that he has hit rock bottom. Now, when it comes to Hank, while he is leaving, the Vision robot actually does flirt with Scarlet Witch, and that is going to be very important for Ultimates 3. Now we have to jump back over to the Defenders. Now, here's the thing, because these guys got a great idea. And when I say a great idea, I really mean a dumb idea. You see, when it comes to the Defenders, they want the world to know about them. And so one of the members of the group says that his cousin got word that a bunch of guys are about to rob a nearby warehouse. If the team is able to stop them on camera and give that footage over to a news channel, then the world is going to know about them and begin to take them more seriously. Now, here's the problem, because like I said earlier, this team, they don't have any abilities at all except Hank Pym with the Ant-Man ability. And besides that, none of them have proper training when it comes to fighting. But now they are about to go out somewhere and try to stop some guys who may have weapons and possibly get killed or just seriously hurt. And honestly, that's what happens next, because when it comes to the Defenders, when they do try their best to stop the group of guys who are trying to rob that warehouse, well, those guys, one, have weapons, and two, they were able to easily overcome the Defenders. Now, you had Nighthawk going first, believing that he should be able to pull off a surprise attack, and the rest of the team should have moved in. But the problem is, Nighthawk failed when it came to the surprise attack. And then you had those guys beat down on Nighthawk to the point where he becomes seriously injured. And so then you have other members like Valkyrie try to run in to hopefully stop those guys. But again, she has no powers or fighting skills at all. So Hank Pym has no choice but to go ahead and become Giant Man once again to stop those guys. But then a picture was taken of him naked and put on the front page. But here's the problem, because now the world knows that one, Hank Pym has hit rock bottom, that he joined the Defenders, a loser group basically. And on top of that, now Nighthawk is in the hospital. And so for Hank, he's wondering how low can he truly go? Now, when it comes to Hank Pym, he does go home for the day. And once he's able to go home, he is confronted by somebody. Now, this somebody is actually the traitor to the Ultimates, the person that has been sharing all the different secrets about the Ultimates to the world. So Hank knows about the traitor, but apparently this traitor is now informing Hank about what the Ultimates have now become. They are now a military force because they had just attacked another country. They had just crippled another country, a third world country. And that is going to be huge. And you're going to see how in Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the Ultimates 2 series, we do pick up with Volume 2, the first 3 chapters of Volume 2, which really does show the downfall to America. Now, guys, remember, when it comes to Ultimates 2, it went into a completely different direction than Ultimates 1 did. You see, Ultimates 1 was really more of, let's put together a superhero team to protect America, to go after super villains. But now Ultimates 2 is going into a direction where it's more of, hey, let's use the Ultimates as a way to attack other countries. Turn our superhero team into a military force to use against countries who could become possible threats down the road against America. Now, let's not forget, after Nick Fury was able to put the Ultimates together and then get the backing of the American government, he did begin to go out of his way to create more members to have on the Ultimates. He wanted at least 5 different teams out there to be able to handle different kinds of situations around the world. And so, when it came to Nick, he began to launch different kinds of projects that would give him more members to the Ultimates. So for example, the Goliath program. When it came to Hank Pym, he was the first giant man. But after beating his wife, he was kicked off the Ultimates, fired from S.H.I.E.L.D., but they took his formula and gave it to other men who are now able to turn into giant men, or Goliaths. Same thing for Iron Man. Once you had Iron Man join the Ultimates, you then had Tony go out of his way to create other armor suits for other people to actually wear. And so it shows that Nick Fury had this plan in his head the entire time. He wanted an army of superpower beings to use against other countries around the world. And so, when it comes to Nick Fury in this storyline, we see him that 6 weeks ago, he sent the entire Ultimates program to attack a nuclear facility to make sure that they would not be able to use none of their nuclear missiles against America, but possibly other countries around the world. Now, some people in those countries were really upset about the idea that America had invaded their country for no actual good reason. Like, yes, they did have nuclear weapons, but did you know they were going to use those weapons against America? Or was this you just saying, hey, just in case, we are going to shut down your facility. Even though this is your country, we're coming here to shut you down. And some of those people could come back and try to attack S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Ultimates down the road. Now, when it comes to Thor, we have to remember that he was locked up at the tail end of Ultimates 2 Volume 1, because in that volume, we had supposedly seen Thor attack a group of police officers who were trying to supposedly stop a protest from happening. But because he did attack those police officers, the Ultimates had no choice but to go ahead and lock him up. Now, something I do want you guys to remember, when it comes to the original Ultimate Marvel universe, it was created in a way where you had to think about our world, the real world, and what would happen if heroes had appeared in our world. And so for most of the people of Earth, they look at Thor as a mentally ill person because there's no way that he is the god of thunder. Now, what also really hurt him was that his brother appeared, Loki. Now, when it comes to Loki, we already know he is the god of mischief, but he played the Ultimates completely by saying that he was some scientist who was going out of his way to help his home country create their own super soldier by using technology. But Thor, being a mentally ill person, went out of his way to steal the tech and to become Thor. But when it comes to today's video, we see Thor talking to Iron Man. Now, Iron Man and Thor, they were close friends back in Ultimates 1, Volume 1, and Volume 2, and really the early parts of Volume 1 for Ultimates 2. But now, they're no longer friends, because now Thor had heard that the Ultimates are going out of their way to attack other countries around the world. Now, when it comes to Thor, he had high hopes for Tony, because Tony was also somebody who said, I would not be part of a team that goes out of their way to attack other countries. But here he is now, going out of his way to attack other countries around the world. Now, for Tony, they had a legit excuse to bring him on for that last mission, because again, it was a nuclear facility. But you have Thor saying, oh, that's all it took to get you on board. Well, here's a question for you right now. If they say China, Japan, or North Korea has some nuclear missiles, are you again going to attack that country as well? What if they say Australia had just built one nuclear missile? Are you going out of your way to attack them as well? And for Tony, he believes that Thor is just talking madness. Now, we have to pick up with the Wasp, because remember, the Wasp is dating Steve Rogers by this point of the Ultimates. But when we pick up with her, we see her on a date, or a lunch date, with Hank Pym. Now remember, Hank Pym by this point is her ex-husband, or soon to be ex-husband, as they go through the divorce process. But the reason why she left him, because he had beaten her so badly back in Volume 1 of Ultimates 1, she almost died. She barely survived. But then she moved on and got with Steve. But now here she is, she's telling Hank that she wants to leave Steve for him. And here is the reason why. Steve is too 1940s. You see, he hates all the shows that she watched. He hates all the clothes that she wears. And a lot of times when they go out for different kind of events, they're hanging out with Bucky and Gail, two friends of Steve Rogers from the 1940s. And so for her, it's just too boring. She wants some excitement in her life. And she believes that Hank can give her that once again, possibly. But now we have to shift our focus over to the home of Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Hawkeye, let's not forget, he has a family, a wife, and a couple of kids. I want to say 3 kids actually. But when it comes to their home, they just were hosts for an Ultimates dinner. You had the Ultimates over, having dinner, having drinks, having a good time. But everybody left. Now, when it comes to his wife, the doorbell rings, and she believes it is the Scarlet Witch coming back for her purse, except it's not the Scarlet Witch. It's a group of guys with guns who kills off Hawkeye's wife just like that. She's gone. And by the time he realized what happened to his wife, they barge into his house and they kill all of his kids. And they shoot him up, but to make sure that he survives so that they'll be able to take him as a hostage. But then, right before the ending of this first chapter, Hawkeye sees who is the traitor to the team. Now, when it comes to his reaction, we can tell it has to be somebody who's very close to him, somebody he trusted very well. And now that person had just killed off his entire family. And so we jump over to Steve Rogers. Now, when it comes to Steve Rogers, well, he goes out of his way to confront the Wasp, to tell the Wasp that he knows that she was with Hank Pym. Now, for Steve, he's wondering, why in the world are you trying to go back to your abuser? Somebody who actually beat you down, not once, but multiple times over the years that you have been with him. And now you have a guy who actually loves you, who actually protects you, who does not put his hands on you, Why are you going back to Hank? And you have the Wasp say, because you're boring. Like literally every day we are arguing over almost everything that I like, the shows I watch, the clothes I wear, the words I say. You hate almost everything about me because I'm not Gail. I'm not someone from your time, the 1940s, because you have not been able to adjust to current times, to current ways. And so you have Steve just leave. He jumps off the balcony to go somewhere else in the world to just get some fresh air, to get away from her. But this is the moment we can say that Steve and the Wasp are most likely officially over. But now we have to jump over to Nick Fury. Now, when it comes to Nick, he got word what happened to Hawkeye, and so he had headed straight over to the home of Hawkeye to hopefully find any kind of clues to figure out what exactly happened to him. Now, we do get confirmation that Hawkeye's family is officially dead. The entire family has been wiped out, minus Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Nick, he tells us that he has cameras all over the place. And so he tells his team to go ahead and tap into those cameras to figure out who led a team of soldiers to attack the home of Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Nick and all the different agents that are with him at the moment, they are very surprised to see who is in the camera taking out the family of Hawkeye. And so now we jump back over to Steve Rogers. Now, when it comes to Steve, you have Steve going over to the home of Bucky. Now remember, Bucky did not become the Winter Soldier in Ultimate Marvel. At the end of World War II, he just married Gail and they began a life with one another. They grew old with one another. And so Bucky is just an old man, but still a very close friend for Steve. And so this is Steve going to Bucky to have a shoulder to cry on, to have somebody to talk to. Because yes, even though Steve and the Wasp did not date that long, and so unfortunately they're going to break up, this is also a man who was thrown into a new world, and then as soon as he arrived in the new world, he was told to become Captain America again, to then lead a team of heroes against different kinds of threats. And so this man unfortunately did not have the chance to actually sit down to catch his breath. And the only thing he was so happy about is now being taken away from him. He already lost Gail to Bucky, and now he is losing the Wasp. But while you have the two guys talking to one another, they don't realize that Nick and S.H.I.E.L.D. are about to move in and go after Steve Rogers. Because when they looked at that camera footage, they saw Steve Rogers. And so they believe that Steve Rogers was the one who killed off Hawkeye's family. He's the one who has been leaking information to everybody across America. He is the one who is currently holding Hawkeye somewhere. And so you have Nick send in the reserves to attack Steve Rogers, to bring him down. Now, Steve has no idea what in the world is going on here. He's kind of like, hey, why are you attacking me? Why are you not talking to me? But this is Nick saying, no, there is no time to talk to you because I know what you did. Now, this is also Nick thinking that when it comes to Steve Rogers, that he was planted there in the waters where Iron Man found him as a way to begin the process to bring down S.H.I.E.L.D., to bring down the American government, that one of their enemies had planned this for a very long time. But again, Steve has no idea what he is talking about. But either way, this chapter ends with Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. and the reserves being able to take down Captain America. And the news spreads fast across all the different news channels across the world or across America. The idea that Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. had just taken down Steve Rogers, that most likely he is the traitor. And different members of the Ultimates cannot believe what they are hearing on the news. And so getting into the final chapter for today's video, we do pick up with Hawkeye now being tortured by some random guy who does a very good job in torturing people. Now, we kind of find out that it has been a couple of days since Hawkeye has been abducted, but we also kind of find out that ever since he was taken, they have been using Hawkeye as a way to gain intel on S.H.I.E.L.D., on different top secret things about S.H.I.E.L.D., how to most likely take S.H.I.E.L.D. down. But unfortunately, Hawkeye can't do anything at all. He's just stuck there and has to be tortured over and over again as they give him different chemicals that allows him to talk. But of course, when he does talk, he's just sharing secrets. But now we jump over to the home of Iron Man. Now remember, around this time in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, Iron Man was engaged to Black Widow. And so you have Iron Man being that good fiance to see how Black Widow is doing, because her and Hawkeye, they were very close friends. They were partners for years in S.H.I.E.L.D. to only hear that, hey, listen, your partner has been kidnapped and his entire family has been killed off. And so she's going through it at the moment, but she tells Tony that she wants to cuddle. It's code word for get in bed and look at her freak on. But now we get into the fall of America. Oh my gosh. This was literally the best part of Ultimates 2. Really, out of all three Ultimates, Ultimates 2 is the best one out of the trilogy. Now, when it comes to the fall of America, you have the Ultimates just meeting up, and you still have the Ultimates not believing in the idea that Steve Rogers would be the guy on a team of heroes as a traitor. They'll want to share all the secrets of S.H.I.E.L.D. to the American people. But while you have the Ultimates talking, that is when things pop off. All major cities are being attacked by an unknown force of metahumans. I'm talking about Chicago, New York, LA, Miami. If there's a major city in your state, it's getting attacked at the moment. And so right now you have the Ultimates wondering what in the world is going on. But then their base gets blown up. Now, luckily for the Ultimates, Quicksilver was able to get everyone out of there just in time. But now you have Quicksilver trying to use his abilities as a way to take down some of the enemies. But the problem is, there's too many of them. And while everything is popping off, Iron Man hears it and he wants to go help out the Ultimates. And that is when we come to find out that Black Widow is actually the traitor. It was not Captain America. It was Black Widow. And now Iron Man is being held hostage. Oh, by the way, Black Widow kills off Jarvis just like that. But now we have to shift our focus over to Loki. Now, when it comes to Loki, he's been around the entire time in the Ultimates 2 series. It's just that no one believed that Loki was actually real. Because again, they believed that Thor was just a mentally ill person who kept saying he's the god of thunder, that his evil brother is playing mind games. But right now, it shows that the god of mischief is up to something, and that something is to see America fall to its knees. Now, with that being said, we kind of find out that Loki is not alone at all. We do see different characters, and we do get hinted at the idea that these different characters have come from different countries around the world. Now, this is a callback, because remember, Nick was warned about the idea of continuing to build the Ultimates. Like, most of the countries ignored the original team. Steve Rogers, Iron Man, Thor, the Wasp, Giant Man. Like, you had most of the countries turn a blind eye to the original team because of what happened in 9/11. But they were warned, Nick was warned by other generals from other countries, do not continue to build more superhumans. Do not continue to build more teams of Ultimates, because if you do, sooner or later, you're going to have other countries try to answer back. And when they do, you're not going to like that answer at all. And right now, we're kind of seeing this answer. We're seeing the other countries sending out different metahumans coming together to attack America, to bring down the Ultimates. And with Black Widow now being a traitor, now we know that she told them how to bring down the Ultimates. And they're being led by Loki, the god of mischief. And so in a matter of minutes, less than 1 hour, America has fallen. The Ultimates has fallen. Loki and his new team of villains have officially won. And this is where we are. Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the Ultimates 2 series, this is going to be our last video, but this is going to be the moment where we can say the Ultimates have now become Avengers, because they are going to avenge America that has fallen to their enemies. Now, for me personally, this is kind of Nick Fury's fault, and let me explain why. So when it came to Nick, S.H.I.E.L.D., and also the American government, back in Ultimates 1, their main goal was just to put together a Ultimates team, and that was really it. A team used as a way to protect America, but to also go after super villains. But Ultimates 2 showed that Nick Fury was lying the entire time, that he really did plan to use the Ultimates as a way to attack other countries around the world, especially countries in the Middle East who are building up nuclear missiles that could be used against America down the road. Now, when it came to different people of the world, they told Nick, hey man, you gotta stop. Like, listen, we allowed you, America, to go ahead and build the Ultimates because of what happened on 9/11. But here you are now creating more different kinds of super beings to use for different operations around the world. If you continue down this path, sooner or later, you're going to have different countries coming together to stop you guys, to bring you guys down. And Nick took that warning and said, whatever, and continue on, and began to use different members of the Ultimates to attack different facilities around the world in different countries, nuclear facilities. And really, we saw that at the very beginning of our last video, where you actually had the Ultimates go into a country in the Middle East to shut down that nuclear facility. But here's the thing, because as we dive into today's storyline, we do pick up with that exact moment once again. But this time, we shift our focus over to a young boy known as Abdul. Now, when it comes to Abdul, he's very upset with the idea that America, that the Ultimates came into his country and shut down their nuclear facility. And he says, what rights do they have to come into our country and do that? Because let's not forget, America also has nuclear weapons, and they are continuing to build those nuclear weapons. So how in the world is it okay for them to have it, but not us? And so when it comes to Abdul, he wants to get revenge for America coming into his country illegally. Now, while riding away on the back of a truck, he does meet a young man who says he does have something that could possibly help Abdul get revenge against the Ultimates, especially Captain America. Now, a few days after that moment, we do jump over to France, and we do pick up with a special meeting taking place in the past. And this shows, when it comes to this meeting, that you did have different countries begin to work together to build a new super team as a way to use against America, better known as the Liberators. And we saw them at the tail end of our last video. Now, here's the thing about the Liberators. Each member comes from a different country around the world. Now, China, they are the only country that went out of their way to send over 2 people to join the Liberators. The first would be Crimson Dynamo, their own version of Iron Man. And then you have the Abomination, their own version of the Hulk. Now, Russia has sent over their own version of Thor, better known as Perun. Now, North Korea had their own version of Quicksilver, better known as Hurricane. Syria has sent over their version of the Wasp, and that would be Swarm. Now, when it comes to France, they also sent someone over who's very similar to Jamie Madrox, and that would be the Schizoid Man. Now, the last person to actually join the Ultimates was the Colonel, but we saw the Colonel just a moment ago. It is Abdul. Abdul went through a different super soldier program, but being the only person after Steve Rogers to be able to take the serum and actually survive and become a super soldier. But he now becomes the leader of the team. And so you had all these different countries come together to say, we need this team to bring down America, to bring America to its knees, but to also get rid of their superhero team as well. But now we are able to jump to the present day, where we do pick up with the Liberators. Now for them, they had officially won. They brought down S.H.I.E.L.D. They brought down America. They brought down the Ultimates, and they were also able to capture Nick Fury as well. For them, it is officially over. Now, something I do want to mention is that Loki is also part of the team as well. Now, here's the thing. Loki was working in the shadows as a way to help the team out, to make sure they were able to pull everything off. But let's not forget, there were also two traitors to the Ultimates as well, who were helping out the Liberators. And that would be Hank Pym and also Black Widow. And speaking of Black Widow, we have to remember that she was with Iron Man when things had popped off. Now, when it comes to Black Widow and Iron Man, they were engaged. Like, Iron Man was very in love with her, to the point where he gave her her own iron suit. But that iron suit is going to save Tony's life right here, because when he gave her the iron suit, he also gave her a wave of nanites in her bloodstream that allowed her to control the suit. But here's the catch. He's the one who can control the nanites, and so he was able to tell them to shut down her body, to give her a brain injury. But then he also gets a bottle of liquor and hits her right in the head to knock her out. And once he does that, he's all like, okay, you know what? It's time for me to get back to work. It's time for me to go into my workshop, and time for me to begin to save the Ultimates. But now we have to jump over to Hawkeye. Now, when it comes to Hawkeye, in our last video, after watching his entire family be killed off, well, he was taken in as a hostage, and they began to torture him, hoping that he would share all the different kinds of secrets about America, S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick, and anything else on his mind. But now it's time for him to escape. Now, he's tied up, but he says, you guys should have taken my fingernails, because I can use those as a weapon. And so he does. And he was able to kill every single person in that room. And once he's out of his binds, a bunch of more soldiers barge in with guns. But they all die just like that. And now Hawkeye is able to escape from this facility. But now we have to jump over to Steve Rogers. Now, when it comes to Steve Rogers, he was locked up in our last video because the Ultimates plus Nick believed that it was Steve who had killed off the family of Hawkeye, who had kidnapped Hawkeye, not knowing the man was innocent. It was Black Widow. But anyways, you have few members of the Liberators on their way over to his cell to bring him over to the Colonel, because the Colonel wants to be the one to kill off Steve Rogers, except they have no idea that Steve Rogers has been released from his binds, has been released from his cells by the Wasp. And so as soon as they walk in and they were able to capture her, well, he gets up and says, let go of my girlfriend. And we already know that this man plans on beating them down. But now we have to jump over to Thor. Now, let's not forget, Thor was also locked up in previous videos of our coverage over Ultimates 2. Really, he was locked up back in Volume 1 of Ultimates 2 because he had supposedly attacked a group of police officers who were trying to stop a protest. Now, here's the thing, because after he had supposedly did that, the Ultimates stepped in, fought him, defeat him, and locked him up. But you had Thor say, guys, we're being played here by my evil brother Loki. But nobody believes that Thor, one, has a brother, and two, that Thor is the god of thunder. And here is the reason why. So when it comes to the Ultimate Marvel Universe, the original one, it was built in a way where it says, hey, think about the real world. Think about our world. What would happen if heroes had appeared in our worlds? And so when it comes to Thor, they don't believe that he is the god of thunder. They believe that he is a mentally ill patient that had escaped from his brother, stole his brother's tech to become Thor, because Loki had also pretended to be a scientist who was working on some new technology that would allow someone to be a very powerful person like Thor was. Every power Thor had came from tech that he stole from his supposed brother. But no one knows it was Loki just playing mind games. But you have Thor sitting in his cells begging for help, begging for his father to finally help him, to get him out of there so that he'll be able to stop Loki. Now, by the time you have Steve Rogers and the Wasp being able to take down a few soldiers that were sent in by the Liberators to bring Steve over to the Colonel, well, you have the Wasp realize they should also free Thor. Thor can help them take down the Liberators, except when they go over to Thor's cell, Homeboy disappeared. And so we're left to wonder, did Odin finally step in and help Thor out? But we have no idea for the moment. Now we have to shift our focus back onto the Liberators. Now, they were able to find the president. He was just hiding on Air Force One, just flying around the country, just hoping that something would pop up that could hopefully save the country so that he'll be able to land, but to also resume his day. But unfortunately, the entire country has been taken over. But either way, he is found by the Liberators. Now you're probably wondering, hey, Fresh, we should know that America has allies. Where are they at? They can't help out. And the reason why? Because the Liberators told the allies of America, if you try to step in, we will use the nuclear missiles that America has as a way to attack your country. We will blow you up. And that's huge because let's not forget, there's Captain Britain, Captain Italy, Captain Spain. Those characters could help out. But they now can't go into America because if they do, their country could possibly be bombed. But getting back over to Steve Rogers and the Wasp, you have the two characters trying to sneak into the White House. They're trying to at least secure the White House, but to also get Nick Fury back and a few members of the Ultimates who are with him. Now, here's the thing. They do go in there thinking that, okay, we are about to enter another battle, but they don't. And the reason why? Because Hawkeye is already there. He cleared the room out. He was able to save Nick, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, and also Betty Ross as well. But here comes the next problem. One of the soldiers that Hawkeye had attacked did not die. He survived. And so he warned the Liberators. And they sent in another wave of soldiers to attack the Ultimates in the White House. Now, y'all, we have to jump over to Iron Man because this is going to lead into a big moment for Iron Man. One of my favorite moments for Iron Man in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, here's the thing. Iron Man is wearing an older suit, and so his staff believes that he is trying to use that suit as a way to fight against the Liberators. But he says, no, there's no way that this suit will give me the chance to actually take down one of their members. I need an upgrade. I need something bigger. And so he flies into space. He goes to his space station to get something else that he has been working on. But y'all, before we are able to see that big moment, we have to shift over to another character who has one of the best moments of the book, another big moment in this book. Now, at first, it may seem like he is just a random guy. And this random guy does get squished by one of the robots that are being used by the Liberators. Except that robot doesn't realize that he had just stepped on Bruce Banner. Now, let's not forget, the world believes that Bruce Banner is dead because he was supposed to be killed off after killing 800 people in Manhattan. They dropped a nuke on him. The Ultimates at first believe it actually worked, that he had died, but in reality he survived, and he was hiding this entire time. But now he's back in New York. Someone just stepped on him, and he does transform right into the Hulk, and he is ready to go. But now we have to jump into the next chapter. Now, here's the thing, y'all. Here is the thing about this chapter. It is literally just our heroes fighting against the Liberators, trying their best to take them down, but our heroes are struggling against them. Now, when it comes to Mark Millar, he does not spend that much time showing our heroes struggling. And yes, there are one-on-one battles happening everywhere. You have the Hulk fighting against Abomination. You have Steve Rogers fighting against the Colonel. You have the Wasp fighting against the Swarm. You have Quicksilver going up against Hurricane. And yes, our heroes are struggling at first, but Mark Millar says no. This new team, the Liberators, they're new. They're still trying to learn how to be a great team. But the Ultimates have been a team for a while now. They have been heroes for a while now. And so our heroes know what to do to help them win a battle against their opponents. And so now our heroes turn the tables against the Liberators. Now, the first battle I do want to talk about will be Quicksilver going up against Hurricane. Now, here's the thing, because at first you have Hurricane actually thinking that she's on the same level as Quicksilver, but you didn't have Quicksilver tell her, no, I can tell that you are nowhere near my level. And the reason why, because you haven't even reached Mach 10, Mach 5. And so because of that, your speed is nowhere near my level of speed. And so you have Quicksilver just grab her, and he goes beyond her limit. And her body cannot handle that limit at all. And so we begin to see her body literally disintegrate right in front of us to show that Quicksilver was on a whole other level. Now, the Wasp, she also gets a big moment in this book. Now, when it comes to the Wasp, in Ultimates 1 and Ultimates 2, most of the team, really most of the people of America looked at her as the weakest member of the team. Like, what can she do to actually help the team out? Well, you see, Hank Pym gave her something, a small sample of his giant man serum, and she takes it. And so she grows really big. And so when it comes to her battle against Swarm, well, she just stomps on her, killing her off just like that, and moving on with her day. But now we have to jump over to Iron Man. Now, when it comes to Iron Man, let's not forget, Homeboy went into space to get something that could most likely help him take down the Liberators, to take down the soldiers who are fighting alongside with the Liberators. And that is what I call his Megazord. But he does actually have a code name for it, and he calls it Iron Man 6. But either way, you do have Iron Man just come down out of the sky with this huge weapon, just blasting folks left and right. And so the Ultimates now have the Liberators on the run. Now, when it comes to Hulk's battle, it's not as big as the others for me because it's the Hulk. It's Ultimate Hulk. We already knew that he would find a way to win. But if he does find a way to win, most likely, if you are the one fighting against him, you are going to die. And so when it comes to the Abomination, he's killed off. You have the Hulk just break his head right off his body and move on with his day to help out the rest of the Ultimates to save the city. Now, I want to focus on the battle between Steve Rogers and also the Colonel, because when it comes to their battle, it really shows that the Colonel is nowhere near the same level as Steve Rogers. Now, at first, he is able to get a few blows on Steve Rogers, but after a while, Steve is able to get the edge over him. And for me personally, it's the book saying, listen, the Colonel is a super soldier, but so is Steve Rogers. And Steve has been a super soldier much longer, and he knows how to win different kinds of fights like this one right here. And so even though you do have the Colonel being able to get a few blows on Steve, Steve is still the stronger one here, and Steve is able to actually win. Now, there is a moment where you have the Colonel try to cheat, but you didn't have Steve being able to get some help from the Hulk. And then after that help comes, you then have Steve being able to go ahead and kill off the Colonel just like that. But now we have to jump over to Loki. Now, Loki is the last member standing here, and Loki is really powerful. And when it comes to the Ultimates, no one on their team can actually go toe to toe with Loki. Maybe the Scarlet Witch, but even then, she can easily lose to him. And he knows that, but she says, listen, I'm not going to try to fight you. Instead, I'm going to use my abilities to help our odds here, to bring someone over here who can most likely stop you. And Loki knows who she is talking about. Ultimate Thor. He appears, and he is ready to go one-on-one with his brother Loki. And so now we get into the final battle between Thor and Loki. Now, I really want to focus more on Loki here for a moment, because when it comes to Loki, we have to remember that yes, he is the god of mischief, which means that he is able to play with reality to a certain level. And so when it comes to Loki, he's trying his best to continue to play mind games on Thor. But the problem is for Loki, Thor can no longer be tricked so easily. Thor now knows what's real and what's fake. He is able to break through all the different kinds of illusions that Loki is trying to throw at him. Now, when it comes to Loki, he knows that he needs some backup. And so out of nowhere, we do see all these different kind of creatures from Asgardian mythos coming into Earth and now helping Loki fight against the Ultimates and Thor. And this is really a big moment for the Ultimates, because the Ultimates the entire time did not believe that Thor was actually the god of thunder, that he was actually from Asgard. There was actually a Loki out there playing mind games. But now with them seeing Thor and Loki and also all these different kinds of creatures, they now believe that Thor is really the god of thunder. Now, when it comes to Odin, he's on Thor's side here. He wants to make sure that Loki does lose. And so you have Odin send in forces from Asgard to back up Thor, the Ultimates, when it comes to fighting against the forces of Loki. And so by the end of the battle, you have Thor being able to once again defeat his evil brother Loki. Now, the story does wrap up very quickly, where you do have the Ultimates begin to say, you know what, it's time for us to no longer have connections to S.H.I.E.L.D. You see, when it comes to Steve Rogers and the rest of the Ultimates, they realize that this was Nick Fury's fault. The idea of working alongside with the American government and being used as a military force brought this upon themselves, brought this upon America. But also you have Steve Rogers and the rest of the Ultimates saying, we cannot just stand up for America. We have to stand up for the entire world. And so this is the Ultimates saying goodbye from being controlled by Nick Fury. But the best part of the book is where you have Hawkeye being able to get revenge against Black Widow. Because remember, he saw her right before he was taken away after his family was killed off. And so he went to a nearby hospital. He found her and she tries her best to get away, but unfortunately she does not. And you have Black Widow be killed off by Hawkeye in a matter of seconds. And for him, it's the best thing ever, because at least he was able to revenge his family. And this is actually going to lead to Hawkeye changing completely in later books down the road, especially Ultimates 3. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.